It is now May the 31st, and you should be viewing this like 2 weeks from now as an intro for one of my Lost Journeys videos, and I'm just addressing the elephant in the room. It's been a rough 24 hours being a Lost fan. As you may know, there's an enormous breakdown of the Lost writers' room in the Vanity Fair article, as well as in an upcoming book about the toxic behavior that existed in the writers' room. And that element was quite shocking, especially reading through all of that. The reason why I'm addressing this like this is just to vent out my thoughts on the matter and the video series as well. As for this episode, I was originally going to talk a little bit more about the writing of The Other Woman, which was written by Drew Goddard and Christina M. Kim, and I was doing a lot of analysis or thoughts on the matter, especially since Christina M. Kim left the writer's room after season 4, and this was the last episode she worked on. But I decided just to edit it out, so this episode is a little bit shorter than it was. I also have 3 additional episodes that go very much in depth of what happened. There's a lot more to the DUI curse right now, even though I feel like I have a very good timeline of the events in that video. We still have to address the fact that there was a very different writer's room than I proposed in that video, as well as the fact that Michelle Rodriguez, something I didn't know about, that she approached the writers halfway into the season about her character, but by then they were already planning to kill her off. I also have the video on Mr. Echo, which we learned from the Vanity Fair article. Has a little bit more nuances, although I feel like that video is still valid. I also have the issue with Lost Fan 108, but that doesn't matter because Lost Fan 108 wasn't part of the writer's room. I feel like that's pretty much established. I also have an additional dilemma about an upcoming video, so I'm just preparing you for it because it will deal a lot about the writers and the writer's room. I'm planning to do an episode about the writer's strike that happened 15 years ago and the impact it had on the writing for Lost as well as the upcoming episode, and I feel like that's kind of like one of my favorite episodes to come right now, and it's a shame that we have this issue to deal with. But I still think that I'm gonna release that video because it involves so many more parts and cogs in the whole thing, and there's no way to edit it out to remove Damon and Carlton without missing my points and analysis, so I'll just keep it as it is. But this video about The Other Woman is a little bit shorter because the element I had, which was like 5 additional minutes about the writing of this episode, just didn't feel appropriate anymore. So that's just my ramblings for the issue. It was quite shocking to read what happened in the writer's room, but yeah, I'll try to distance myself more in upcoming videos. I know I put a lot of emphasis on what the writer said and did and all of that, but maybe we should just let the show speak for itself. I might pull in some quotes and stuff like that from the writers, but I won't put so much emphasis on what they say. So that's my thoughts on the matter. Hope you enjoyed the episode The Other Woman. The Other Woman is an odd one, because the content of this episode being an episode with on-island flashbacks, several stories regarding the Whisperers, the Others, and the Barracks, as well as visiting a brand new DHARMA station, sounds like an awesome episode on paper, but to me, this is quite far down on the overall ranking, and there are some elements in this episode that are not explored anymore. Could the poor reception of this episode be a factor in this? Characters like Harper didn't exactly woo any audience members, and she never made an additional appearance, just like Isabel in last season. We'll explore Harper and the Tempest and all the other stuff in a bit. Let's deal with this chronologically. The majority of Juliet's story is explored in One of Us, so if you haven't seen that analysis, you can go ahead and do that. It's part of my season 3 list. There's 7 flashback sequences in this episode. Number 1, the first one being in September 2001, a week after she got to the island. We've already covered it, so I won't talk much about it. Juliet has a therapy session with Harper. Not sure which house, so we have to assign one, but it demands a bit of walking, so it's not next door. Maybe here? She is then brought down to her new house, this one over here. The next flashback sequence takes place in the laboratory at the barracks. Goodwin rushes to this place after having an accident at the Tempest. I believe this is the same laboratory that Pierre Chang used back in the DHARMA days.
The woman who was supposed to be processing you in had a baby last night. I got pulled out of my lab.
We don't know when this happens, but I would place it very early in Juliet's time here. She is still the new one. Before the next flashback sequence, she has now started sleeping with Goodwin. Number 3. The next flashback sequence takes place in the same place. Ben has arrived here, and she talks about what she has learned about the fetuses and the mothers. Goodwin comes by, offers Ethan's lunch, before he is heading out. Juliet will later go to see Harper, and she is afraid of the consequences of Ben's actions if he learns the truth about Juliet's relationship with Goodwin. The 4th flashback sequence takes place on a beach. It is filmed at Kauwela Bay Beach. The only other time we've had a scene here was way back in season 1. This is Sawyer's skinny dipping beach. Quite fitting that the only characters that swam here were Sawyer and Juliet. Unfortunately, I can't place the location down here, since Goodwin says that the Tempest is less than a kilometer from here. So I've placed it here instead. Goodwin has been sleeping on the couch for a year. This scene jumps directly to the next flashback sequence.
What's Ben gonna do?
September 22nd, 2004. We've already covered this scene. The 6th flashback sequence we covered back in season 2. The dinner at Ben's house. The 7th and final flashback sequence is at the barracks. Mihail comes by the laboratory with Shepard's file. Juliet reads it. Ben later comes by and then will take her to Goodwin's body, which is also explored in an earlier video of the Lost Journeys. Now that we're done with Juliet's backstory, we'll move on to the present. In an off-screen scene, Charlotte and Daniel will now sneak out and head towards the Tempest.
Alright, we got a lot of ground to cover, so let's fan out. If you cut their trail, call out to me. I'll come to you.
Jack, Juliet, Sun, and Jin go into the jungle to search for them. Juliet is surrounded by whisperers. Some of them say, "Is that the other woman?" And someone by the name of Sarah is told, "Sarah, it's someone we know." I assume that these are dead others now trapped on the island. She is then greeted by Harper. The Harper situation is odd. Is she dead or alive? The showrunners said that Harper was alive, but as we've witnessed before, things they say in other media during the show's run can still be changed. New ideas replace others. In the March 10th, 2008 podcast, they say this.
Okay. Is this the last we've seen of Harper?
No, she's another. She's still on the island. We didn't kill her.
But that's during season 4. I tried to look at the behind the scenes footage for the writer's room, since they have this wall of people that are either grouped into living or dead or undead.
These are all the characters who are still living. Of course, don't think that just because you see them here that they are surviving long into season 5. And then sort of there's an undead column.
Yeah, let me move
right
this here.
Next to the living column there.
We have Christian Shepherd, and we have Echo's brother, and the horse.
Kate's horse.
Kate's horse.
That's right. All
Kate's
undead.
horse is undead.
And then over in the R.I.P. column there, the rest in peace, everybody who's sort of left our merry band already. So.
But her character is too insignificant. Maybe there were some things in this episode that didn't work out for them, or that the actress was not available for future episodes. The actress Andrea Roth became pregnant during the later part of the series, so that could have prevented her from appearing in season 5 or 6. If we take the showrunner's word for it, and that she is alive, she has therefore learned information about the freighter people and their motivation, and that they are heading towards the Tempest. I propose the theory that if she is alive, she likely learned a lot of information from Ben at the end of season 3, before he was in captivity. This was the last possible time he could have forwarded this information. That is, unless he had a secret walkie hidden in the basement room. But what about the sudden disappearance?
Maybe you and your gun can go too.
Yes, she disappeared very quickly, but that can be just classical others maneuvers and the editing being a bit misleading. Or we can try to interpret it differently, that she wasn't acting on Ben's orders, she lied about it all and just wanted Juliet to suffer. If she witnessed that Faraday and Charlotte were heading towards the Tempest and talking about the gas, she wanted Juliet to be there since she hates her. If she died, then that must have happened off screen. I guess this could have been a variety of reasons. It could be suicide, or that she went into a rage after her husband's death, threatened to kill Ben and he did it instead. In secret, of course, since Juliet doesn't seem surprised to see her. Maybe she was poisoned. Ben knows about the rules and how strict they are about killing one of their own, but Ben does break the rules. He orders Mikhail to kill Greta and Bonnie. So for all we know, Ben could have killed her and got rid of her body someplace on the island. She could have been a whisperer and is accompanied by the other whisperers. Is the man in black in the picture instead? Possibly. If the body of Harper is on the island, he could appear as her. The whisperers already have a tendency of being near the master. A cool theory by Getting Lost, linked in the description, details how the whisperers is an effective tool used by the man in black. The master scanned Juliet less than 2 weeks ago, so he would know all about their history. What I'm curious about is why the man in black would send Juliet to stop Charlotte and Dan. Wouldn't it be better to let them just mess around with the gas? Or is sending Juliet there a good thing? Because it would create conflict and potentially cause the gas to be released. After all, Juliet being in the Tempest caused a fight scene, leaving Daniel alone with the computer to destabilize the gas. The Harper situation is odd. I think that it works with both either dead or alive, so there's plenty of theories to go around for what happened in this scene. By the way, I wonder what happened to Seth and Jin though. They went out to look for Daniel and Charlotte, and Jack didn't go back to camp. So Jack and Juliet just marched on towards the Tempest. Did Seth and Jin still look around or just resume back to their tents? They probably went back to the beach camp. It is now day 95, December the 25th. Christmas Day. Daniel and Charlotte are at a river and we get a glimpse of a map of the Tempest. This is drawn differently than the others and resemble the drawing style of the maps of Middle Earth. We get the same drawing style for another map later on. I think it's a fair deduction that they are made by the same artist. This map was likely handed to them by Naomi through Matthew Abaddon, who likely got this from Charles Widmore, a previous island resident. Ruby Clayton, who owns the temple map in real life after the last auction, has helped me with a few translations that are too hard to read on this screenshot. What the map says is, possible path through northern mountains, half a kilometer north up the coast, a couple hundred meters east up the hillside, follow the trail left up main peak, and follow the river to the east end of the grotto. Head due east towards the smaller mountain range, high pass round the north of the mountains. The C and H marker here can be anything. They could be a separate map with letters assigned to certain things, such as a sewage pipe by the DHARMA initiative, a water filtration unit, an underground cable hub, and so on. There's so much DHARMA infrastructure underneath the island that we never see. The cove here fits my map, which is the Puana Point Beach, aka the Peonit Beach. These large mountains here are both the ones we saw at the end of The Economist, but also the cliff from Dave. Kate has been trekking through the jungle towards the beach camp. She comes by and she's knocked out by Charlotte before they start heading towards the DHARMA station. Let's see Locke's camp for a bit. Locke is preparing a rabbit which will be shared for dinner. That means that Locke has remembered what day it is and they are celebrating Christmas. Nice. Claire talks to him and finally shows some initiative. One of the better Claire moments for a while, I must say. Locke goes back to the house, down to the basement, and visits Ben to hand him some rabbit.
And I give you my word, I'll tell you everything you want to know about the
But
person
see,
who sent
there's the
traitor.
problem. I don't trust your word.
All right, then. I guess I'll have to show you.
So he's taken upstairs and they open a safe behind a picture here. They watch the video. Another thing is that Ben hands him a folder where he says that everything he knows about Widmore is in that folder. Ben lies a lot, and I don't believe him here. He says he doesn't know why Widmore is interested in the island, but he certainly does. And I don't think the folder tells us everything about Widmore, because that would include his entire history of being leader of the others, and so on. I just think this folder is whatever Tom got about Widmore's activities prior to the freighter mission. Jack and Juliet find Kate by this stream, likely the one marked on the Tempest map. Juliet says she's gonna find some water, but instead continues on towards the Tempest. Juliet finds Daniel and Charlotte inside the Tempest. I haven't made an interior map of it, since we're only here for just a few minutes. In my analysis of the blaster map, I talk a bit about what they could have been researching here, and one aspect is heavy water, which is alluded to at the map. It's an enormous station with 2 floors. The filming location is quite fun. Most of the DHARMA station are either built in a studio or use the exterior of an abandoned building as part of their station. The outside of the station is near Kualoa Ranch. You can see the mountain chain here, but the inside is filmed at an abandoned milk factory. The foremost milk factory that closed down in 2004, a couple of years before they filmed this episode here. And poetically, the whole facility was demolished in 2010, just after Lost had ended. It's fun to me that a milk factory that had operated in over 50 years was turned into a DHARMA station before being destroyed. These are HTST, high temperature short time pasteurization systems, so this is where Frogurt was making all his frozen yogurt. Nah, but seriously, the crew redecorated it so that it's supposed to be an area of gas, but it's just hilarious to me to watch this intense scene and to look at these tanks and imagine that they used to separate cream and skimmed milk. Juliet even walks past a sign for box maker, which is probably something from the original building, making boxes to ship out the milk. Juliet fights with Charlotte under false pretenses that they are releasing the gas, but Daniel renders it inert. Kate and Jack comes by. Kate goes inside, and in an off-screen scene, Daniel will do a big exposition about this station. That surely would have been cool to listen to, but I guess it won't work as well in a TV show. Back at the barracks, Ben tells Locke about Michael. He's then given this house and moves in there, to the shock of Hurley and Sawyer. The previous resident here was one of the background cast others, played by Terry Verily, since she exits this house on the day the plane crashed. But in the 70s, this house was briefly occupied by Kate. Stay tuned for next week and please subscribe for more island exploration.